Hey, Fred. Welcome.
Sorry, guys. Hello.
We're just waiting for a few minutes to see if folks would join. Last week we had, you weren't there, but we had a very interesting discussion from, a very interesting introduction from developer guy with, let's say, everything that is cosign with signature and even with key, and even a bit about the keyless version, which is very interesting, but also a bit more complicated. There is a recording on YouTube if you want to check it out. I think it was cool.
Well, thanks.
Let's see if folks will join, but anyways, even if they don't, I got Fred, and I want Fred because you said something that caught my attention, that you wrote something about the attempt to generate an SBOM for libs and Falco, which is something that I'm thinking about a lot. So anyways, even if we don't have many people, we have Fred, and this is one of the items that I wanted to discuss.
Yeah, I'm also very interested in that. And, you know, if you guys want to work together, we could do that for the libs. That would be awesome. Yeah.
Very cool.
I've looked in a couple of things. There is a, not so supported CMake project that attempts to generate SPDX SBOMs, and there is, of course, Conan. You probably know.
Yeah,
that's the one that would require us to basically redo how we manage packages, right? But that would be one option because you sort of get a more supported, I guess, package manager for C++ kind of a library. So that's one option too.
Yeah, that's something that I also considered a bit, although Conan is in Python, and even installing it is a bit painful because
I did check all the Conan libraries and cross-listed them with the libs. I think there is maybe one or two that I didn't find in the catalog, but otherwise everything is in there. So I wouldn't rule out Conan because of availability of libraries. It seems that people are, they're using it. But like you said, it would take, I think we need to read more about it. There are some folks who have integrated Conan with CMake and do like a hybrid sort of build with CMake. But I need to, to educate myself a little bit more on that. That was what I was reading about over the winter. But you're right. It's different build systems, like you having like porting, your thing to, a Maven type of build system, right? It's different. It has special configurations and yeah. So I wonder if there's anything out there, or if we would build something or contribute to some project that is ongoing that integrates a package management via Conan into, a CMake pipeline. That could be one way. But anyway,
yeah,
right now, you see how we manage the modules, right? Look, we have that modules in CMake, and then we have the hard-coded versions of the libraries there, and we basically download them. Yeah, it's not.
Falco does exactly the same. I mean, it's got the external project add inside a module in CMake, and it actually downloads it off GitHub.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think we have enough of interesting stuff to discuss today. Even if others are not here, I really want to write down a bunch of things that we were discussing just now with Fred, plus my own ideas, and maybe see if someone has other ideas. Also, welcome, Max. And as usual, actually, I might be thinking about moving this meeting to bi-weekly, because like once every 2 weeks, because there's a lot of people that have stuff to do, so we can organize better, but I'll think a bit about it. Welcome, Max.
Hi.
And then welcome all to our little discussion today about Falco supply chain security, and maybe also security in general. So as you know, exactly like the Falco call, this call is both recorded and is under the CNCF code of conduct, since Falco is a CNCF project. So we are all going to be very nice to each other, and remember that if we have our webcam and microphones on, we're going to end up on YouTube. So with the recordings, and the recordings for these meetings are very interesting and important because there's a lot of cool stuff that's been discussed by by experts. So I think I can take our notes document, share my screen, and start writing down. I think we can start from exactly what we were discussing with Fred right now, because even if we just start writing down ideas about that project, we have at least a starting point or something to work on. So let me share the screen real quick. I think this one should be. Just a second. This one. Also, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, as usual, Fred and everyone that has worked. Actually, each and every one of you that has worked a lot for the new Falco release, because Fred is helping with testing. Lorenzo Susini and Roberto are doing so many things, and really a lot of stuff. And Max was instrumental in getting our CI to work properly and securely 2 weeks ago. So thank you everyone.
I feel like every release is becoming more complex, like more features and more changes, and
yeah. I mean, I'm very excited about working on a project that is getting so much attention and so many new things and features and performance improvements and optimizations. On the other hand, every time I have to test this, I'm like, okay, where do we start? What's going on? And the thing is, everything is really high quality that gets in there. The problem is it's so complex that of course it's going to there's bound to be surprises and other similar things. As we mentioned, everyone is trying to make it a bit less. Let's say the number, not a bit less the number of new things, but a bit less the number of surprises that, especially when downstream pools they will find. For example, one thing is okay. It's not about this meeting specifically, but one thing is even signaling breaking changes. We're doing it much more and more now, but getting it perfect is hard. So yeah, so many new things and breaking changes even in the libs. So awesome. After speaking so long, I can actually I think we can start with about Falco SBOM. So Fred, would you summarize what you were just mentioning, libs SBOM? So what are, yeah, that's cool. No, I also, right. Fred, if you're talking, you're muted.
I was actually. I was like moving my mouth. Sorry. So I was just saying that this first Git that I posted there, it's an attempt from a person who tries to generate SPDX SBOMs from CMake, but he hasn't touched the repo in 2 years. So I think it's more like for us to take a look and see what's the state and if there's any potential in, contributing and taking this to a more mature level. Of course, if you go for a Conan-based build, then you have full support for Cyclone DX or SPDX, and there are tools out there that for a Conan-based build would spit out an SBOM. So I think it's more a question how we would like to explore. There is some documentation. I was reading about it, but I haven't gone through the entire thing. But Conan also allows you to basically spit out CMake lists and basically have a CMake build system. But I think it would still require us to change how the Falco libs is built, but it could be an interesting thing. Because one challenge with the Falco libs also is that we statically build everything, all the modules inside it. So once that is statically built, you lose, right? Any potential information that you could get, any metadata. So you need to do that at build time. You have to have the metadata for the dependencies, the hashes and everything that digests, so that you can generate that SBOM during build, right? And hopefully we could host that on an OCI artifact, or host those SBOMs somewhere that people who are consuming the libs could actually get them. I was going to post another link here. So the docs from the Conan, right, that talks about how to enable a Conan CMake build. So I think the main change, if we explore the Conan route, would be to look how to obtain and gather the modules, right? That modules folder inside CMake that we have in the Falco libs, to get the libraries directly from the Conan repo. Yeah. And again, I cross-listed them. I don't have the list right now in front of me, but I think I didn't find one or two libraries in the public catalog. The rest was all there. So there are like many. They're fairly well supported, the Conan catalog. Yeah, that's pretty much what I.
Yeah, I have things to say about all of these points. So what this does, I think, what this does, because I think I looked at it very briefly, is using this thing. Apparently, there's an API in CMake that I've never tried to use, that basically you make requests to this API via files. So you put the file somewhere with all your parameters for the API, and then you run CMake, and CMake will give you the answer somehow. So this is, and you can query CMake for a bunch of things. Now, exactly what these things are, I don't know, but probably I would say, if we go this route, this CMake SPDX route, we probably want to build our own, because the problem here is that CMake, maybe we can take inspiration from this project or something like that, but CMake projects are very different from each other. So our way of doing CMake is probably different from the way that this project used to make CMake, because it was talking about Zephyr, this project that I don't know. And this is also a Linux Foundation project, so I guess it uses CMake in a pretty standard way, but surely in a slightly different way than we do in Falco. So we probably will have to make some kind of tool that uses the CMake the CMake file-based API to get the stuff that we need. Now, the stuff that we need, in my opinion, is pretty simple. Like if you go on the libs, we'll get to here, like in modules, and if we go in, for example, I don't know, one library, this gRPC, which is complicated, we will find out an external project add, and it's going to be something, and it will have stuff in here. And this is one thing, and at the end, what we get out of it is something probably custom, because probably you cannot get the same thing for every library because it's not standardized. So you're probably going to need a standard way to say that you're including gRPC. So here maybe you say gRPC and the version which doesn't have the a full standard. About the standard itself, I don't completely know what the best, but I would need I would need more things at this point, because I honestly don't want an SBOM that does nothing, that is just there to be an SBOM. I want an SBOM that I can use to detect vulnerabilities into our dependencies, because I want to use it for security. Then I get an additional problem, because if I just write an SBOM like this, I'll get I'll get gRPC version v1.44.0. This version and this gRPC is actually nothing that I can use to check for vulnerabilities. So what I would need is having a way to map that into something that does. And what it does, we have two options. We have either a thing called the CPE. I don't know if you know what the NVD CPE is. It's like one of these, if I look here for gRPC.
Yeah, the common platform.
It's this thing. So, well, here it's Kotlin Node.js. Oh yeah, because this, I guess it's dividing. I've never seen them dividing in this specific field, using this field target software to divide it, but it's possible. It's one of the ways that you can divide it. But basically, you're going to need a vendor, that's gRPC, a product, that's gRPC, and then a version number. And those need to be formatted well in the SBOM so that a vulnerability detection software can pick it up and match it. If you don't have it perfectly, you're not going to be able to match it. One great advantage of Conan is that Conan has its own packages. And for example, the GitLab security, thing, DB, is the GitLab security advisory database contains a directory for Conan. And this one is pretty cool, I think, because it's got, for example, gRPC. Doesn't have it. Cool. Protobuf, for example. It's got a bunch of things. It's got actual vulnerability advisories, so we can actually do security with our SBOM. So yeah, what we get here is that we can find this is actually useful if we use Conan, but we do need to completely commit to a build system.
Yeah, we would need to. Exactly, that's a major decision. It's not only us, right? I mean, we could potentially explore and map out what are the things that need to be changed to present to the community, to the other maintainers, and see if this is something doable. But I think the advantages are clear, right? You already mentioned them. So
yeah, the advantages. So with Conan on paper, we'd have two major things. One is that, at least in theory, our dependency management should be easier, because right now it's a bit of a nightmare. And the second thing is that we would have this stuff kind of for free. So we could have an SBOM generation part that comes. I tried to use, I think, the Conan standard package that you can use to generate an SBOM, and I got something, and I was able to supply that into a vulnerability scanner and find vulnerabilities. I have to say, honestly, in my personal experience, these GitLab security advisory database, that's the one that's mostly used for Conan, is not as timely and as accurate as other databases, for example, for other software ecosystem. So the one for Conan seems to be lagging behind a little bit, probably because someone is filling this information in manually from MDD or CVE list or anything else. So basically, we'd have a bunch of advantages. Now the problem is we can, to summarize, standard tool. We can create a tool with oops. And can to do this,
So you're basically, when you say adding our own metadata, are you talking about adding also the external correlations to CWEs, CPEs, and so on, or we're getting that from, the GitLab repo? How do you?
If we use CMake, if we try to build our own tool, we'd have to do it manually. So standard name plus version, CP information. So these two things, so the CP information and standard name and version are things that we have to supply ourselves. So these two CP things that I showed you that are gRPC is not something that you can infer automatically. You have to go there and say, okay, if I go on the source code, I can take a look and say this package. I know the CPE because I have knowledge of it. I cannot just taking the GitHub URL is not enough. There's no place that tells you that a specific GitHub URL is a specific CPE, and you cannot infer from the name as well because gRPC is one, but who tells me what CPE? I don't know. Protobuf has, is it libprotobuf, is it protobuf, is it and there's no way of knowing unless you go and search for it manually. I've had this problem because I'm experienced in vulnerability management, and I've had this problem, and the only solution is that you have to know it. You can't automatically generate. On the other hand, yes.
No, I see. Another question is, how do we handle the dependency chains, right? Each of those libraries, they will also be built, and they will contain dependencies to, other libraries. It's all like a static link at the end, but I think would be interesting to also expose those dependencies, isn't it? Or are we going to stop at the first, just the first level of dependency that we have? I mean, how thorough you want to do this?
This is a great question. So right now, I believe, and also one question that I might have is why do we need the whole dependency chain? Because I can think about a couple of things. Let's take a look at the Falco code and Falco security libs in the libs. So if we can take a look at this thing, we can actually see that we have some dependencies that are very explicit, but we don't have all of them put into the thing. So gRPC has explicit dependencies, and those dependencies are like. Let's take a look. I remember depend. OpenSSL, Protobuf, CRS, and zlib and RE2. So these are the dependencies that we have in this project, and we have to build them ourselves. So these are explicit, but maybe there is something inside here that it's built statically and it's not explicit and it's just going to be downloaded. I think in that case, we probably don't want to try and infer them unless we specify them explicitly, and in the Conan environment, in the potential Conan environment as well, because we don't know them, and they could change at any time. Zoom is
I believe Conan give you, right, they use by, so they given a library version, it will tell you what other libraries are using it. So I don't know if that's something that we could also use.
So is there anything that we have here?
Yeah, so go to zlib, for example.
There we go.
Yeah, if you scroll, yeah, to the right, you see those tabs, there is a used by there. To the right.
Used by.
Yeah, so it will tell you all the different libraries that are in the catalog that are using it. So you can do you can see that, and there's also, yeah. Yeah, so you see, for example.
This is pretty cool, I think. Okay, so this one, if we do it, if we
So we may not need, right, to build the chains ourselves. I mean, hopefully if we're using a package management like Conan, that it's given in a way.
um,
Essentially, what we're doing, I mean, discussing here, right, Luca, is adding a package manager for C++ libraries. Right now, we don't have. We basically have hard-coded, basically dependencies that we pull, right, from the different projects in the CMake files. I think the proposition here is, can we add a more sort of managed, right, way of pulling packages and getting the metadata? So Conan would fill that gap, I think.
Conan could be tracking.
It can track as well, yeah. You can, given one version, one specific version hash of your library, you can see the what else uses it. And
So this is on paper, I think it's the clean solution. So I agree with you that on paper, this is the absolutely cleaner solution, and this sounds great. Although the problem here, and this is now what we probably want to explore. Okay, so there's two sides to it, because at this point it's not just about security, because there's the part about detecting vulnerabilities that on one side, if we do everything on our own, we can add information like CP information or whatever that we are sure will make dependency scanning tools work. So we know that if we put dependencies in a specific way, then there is this specific tool that takes them. On the other hand, we know that detection is not perfect, but it exists. And maybe in that case, I think we could, maybe if there's something open source that we can improve there, we can actually do it. On the other hand, this has a huge impact on how we build Falco. So has a huge impact for everyone. Everyone that builds Falco, everyone that builds the libraries, everyone that builds projects, any project downstream, such as Sysflow. So it sounds super clean, but we don't know how actually painful it might be to A, migrate, and B, actually use the thing. So what could be the first step here? What is it that, given that Conan can probably work with the most of our dependencies, what is it the first thing that we could do? And just the first experiment, do we want to try to replace one library and see how it works? What could we do to try and see if it works?
yeah, I agree with you. We should first know, the usability issues, and yeah, get our hands dirty, right? Because I haven't done a build with Conan, so.
So I think I have it installed. I have installed it on a machine, and I don't and I don't know exactly how it works. I think I can.
The link that I sent you, I think, has the getting started. The second link.
Yeah. So can we use it in our current workflow? So let's put the questions here. Because I think we need to come up with something that we can present to other maintainers if we want to do it. Because there's many maintainers, and I know that by default people are not thrilled about something like that. So if we have very specific advantages,
Exactly. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Bye, Max.
um, uh, this is another thing that came to my mind, and that's the fact that I don't know if you've ever tried to upgrade libprotobuf or gRPC inside the Falco libraries. It's not a pleasant experience because those things have so many dependencies. And if you remember, at some point, I think there's this monstrosity at some point in the code that says, hey, we need to link all these libraries because these are the requirements.
I suffered through a sale and other things before. Yeah.
So would it help? Because if it does, maybe this could be one advantage to using that. I think even installing Conan is not the. I tried installing it. I remember I had some problems because that's. I think that's mostly Python related because sometimes if you install a bunch of packages with Python, you might end up with an environment that has some conflicting dependencies or something like that.
You may want to use virtual environments, but yeah, you're right. That's a problem with Python, depending on how your environment is set up.
And so maybe, perhaps, one thing we could do is, apart from learning the basics of Conan or of how this thing is, how this thing works, we could try and maybe take in our own in a branch, in a fork of the Falco of the Falco libraries, and try perhaps to replace or one dependency or something like that with one of these, and see if what are the problems, because I know that there's a lot of problems that are hiding in here. I think I did one basic hello world, maybe. Let me look for it. Maybe I can show you. Maybe not. No, I don't have it here. But I think I have tried at some point to. Ooh, wait a minute. We have stuff that has a Conan file inside the Falco security libs. This is.
So somebody's already using it?
So this is what I have tried to do. Okay, let me share the entire screen so that you can see it. This is what I tried to do before. That is step 2. I think that is it. And I believe that so. This is what I tried to do. So I think I tried to take I tried to create a Conan file here, and then I tried to add one library, and then I tried to not even build a working thing, just creating something that would contain some information. I tried 2 examples. Yeah, this one is probably better because it's like the tutorial, and it has a very simple thing that requires one library, and then has a Conan file that requires one library, and then I created the build and then a Cyclone DX and a Cyclone DX SBOM. This is actually pretty. No, this is generated by a Trivy. I tried to run Trivy on it to create the SBOM because the Conan file and Conan lock are not don't do anything from here. So I tried to generate an SBOM somehow and scan it. It's doable, but for example, it creates this build directory with a bunch of things, and I don't know how to properly handle stuff like the conan.log file, which I guess it's important because it's the log file. It creates the log file, of course, for my dependency, and the cool thing is that it looks like the extra dependencies are handled here. So,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I see that there's POCO and there's the PCRE, which is probably a dependency, and zlib is probably a dependency from POCO. And why is SQLite here? Maybe I tried to add SQLite, and I wasn't expecting SQLite to be here, but maybe it's one of the dependencies simply.
No, yeah, that's why you need the tree. Yeah, because if you're doing searches, you will need to scan the dependencies as well, the transient dependencies.
Now, this might create a ton of things. It might create an SBOM that is a little too fat, but I don't think there is any way around it. So we might have this SBOM that has so many libraries, and maybe if a bug is found in SQLite 3, we might have a vulnerability scanner alert because of SQLite 3, even if there's no place in which this is used.
But I think you want that, right? You want to be flagged. Because say that they discovered, important vulnerability in a library that, one of our direct libraries depends on, you want to be able to know that, right? Even before your library has sent an advisory or anything like that. So I guess Falco deploys ubiquitously, right? You want to put Falco in every endpoint on your organization. So you want to have the ability to scan those endpoints and be able to quickly tell if you have a vulnerable version that is affected there, right?
I guess. So, for example, I guess that the command was conan install conan file.txt, and it's going to just install my requirements. All these requirements come from the library itself and all the packages that they want. Which is the only one. So it does work, and the build system is based on CMake. So and it probably needs to be done in the CMake lists is something that this is the tutorial one. It simply needs this extra thing. So if I go in the builder, it should be just fine. Probably because I moved this from another directory or something like that. But the idea is that you can use this in a CMake setup.
Yeah,
of course, this is something that I just tried once, but it looked like it kind of worked, but it was a little clunky if I recall correctly.
In the case of Falco libs, of course, you would modify our main CMake file to include that Conan basic setup there. You wouldn't take any of those generated CMake files as is. So
so you add it to the CMake file, and then when you set up Conan, maybe you have to set it up from the build directory itself. You can just run it and simply see and it should put the dependencies in the right place. That's the basic idea, I believe. Yeah. So if I go here, you said that you mentioned the basic introduction and the getting started guide, and this is exactly what I did. This is the basic tutorial that I had to do. So you can inspect it. It tells you a bunch of things. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, what you want to do is You can, well, the cool thing is also it's multi-platform. As long as you have Python, I guess it works. And what you want to do is do the setup, that is the thing, and you have to include its own building info. So that's the trick. That's where the trick happens. You run install, it's going to install everything. Also, it's got both binary and source distributions, and I believe that most people use source distribution and compile them themselves, because binary, I guess it's not easy to make static binaries if you use binary dependencies that are pre-built by the community.
The actual build doesn't. I need to check that, but does the actual build need Python, or you need Python just for the Conan CLI, to install packages and things like that? I wonder, like, if in the generated CMakes that it creates, it does everything like CMake native, right? So there's no need for Python, right? So whatever we would push into the Falco libs wouldn't require, Python to build. I think we need to check that. Because it might be that you only need Python to install packages just for the package management, but I don't know. I'm just asking.
This is a great question. I don't know. So I think we have a bunch of questions. I just did the tutorial in a few minutes, and in fact, just running it as is in the directory wasn't the right thing to do. You have to be careful at every step. So, I think in general we can try to set up a simple project or something. Of course, if you want to run a tutorial, something like that for that, and then try to at least replace one thing in Falco Security Library to find out if this could make sense. So if what are the critical parts in this thing. Fred, I know that you've worked a bit on it. Would you like to try and to get to, let's see, to get to a point, Lorenzo dropped and Massimiliano dropped earlier, but anyways, to get to a point that we can try and continue the discussion, because if there's any hard blocker for Conan, I don't think it makes sense to propose it to the maintainers. But if this is something viable, for example, maybe you need the CLI only to upgrade the packages and you get something robust, maybe it's something that we can propose to the community at large. So I think this is cool in general, but and if this is not possible, we have to do the CMake. We might want to do the pure CMake thing, which is more painful on one side. But...
yeah, manually generating the SBones is not an option. I think too many dependencies will be like a hassle. So if there is a way to automate it, I think it's worth exploring. So yeah, let's give it a try. I'd be happy to try, with zlib or some small library that we have there.
Yeah, automating this is necessary. So whatever we do, even with CMake, it needs to be somehow automated, because you cannot do it manually. Like let's say I don't say any way we can think about creating an SBone by hand and updating it every time a dependency is updated. It just wouldn't work.
Yeah, wouldn't.
Well, thanks a lot, really. Thank you, Roberto, for also listening to this. Thanks a lot, Fred, and we had a great discussion. And we were a few people today, and so I didn't want to force any meeting. But I know that Fred is also passionate about this, and so it was. I think it was a great chance we had to start a discussion, just brainstorming and adding the basic thought that we had at the beginning of this.
Yeah, thanks for the time. Yeah, we'll chat more.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Yeah.
Have a great evening or day or anything.
Yeah, starting my afternoon here, so
Right. Cool. Thank you so much. See you
guys.
next.
Bye now.
Bye.